everybody, Jolt here from the TokenMinorities, and I am here with the Season 5 Week 3 battle of the National Pokeball League. This week against my good friend Togevoir. He is also a 2-0 team, so this is a clash of the undefeateds, and it's a battle that I've been looking forward to for quite some time, mainly because we probably should have been the opponents in the Season 4 Championship, and with that in mind, we're essentially going to consider this the actual championship match for Season 4, so we've both been looking forward to this for quite some time, and let's go ahead and dive on into the team overview. So, his draft is very disgusting. He has the Hax core of Jirachi Togekiss, which quite honestly is enough to beat me on its own. So that's kind of unfortunate, but I'm going to have to do the best I can to prevent that from being the actual case. Then he also has Hydreigon, Breloom, Snorlax, Rotom, Heat, Blastoise, Frogadier, Mega Pidgeot, and Garchomp. So he's got some threats on his roster, to say the least, even in addition to the Hax core. Mega Pidgeot, for example, is very, very strong against my team. The only things I really have that can stop it cold are the Sylveon and the Empoleon, both of which can easily be hit, or at least Empoleon can be hit by a hidden power, fighting, electric, ground, whatever he chooses to do. And Sylveon really doesn't appreciate the Hurricane spam either, especially considering the potential to land that oh-so-wonderful Confusion Hacks from Hurricanes. So I'm a little concerned about Mega Pidgeot, to say the least. I really don't have the best of options to deal with it. The only ways I can really outpace it are with Scarfers or Priority, and I guess we'll just kind of see what happens on that. The Hydreigon is probably not the biggest threat because I do have the Sylveon and the Mega Venusaur, both of which can handle it pretty well. Stallbreaker Hydreigon obviously would beat the Mega Venusaur 1v1, but otherwise I should be able to beat it with that. Breloom beaten by Mega Venusaur 100%, and I'll show you exactly how I plan to do that here soon. Snorlax is a pretty big threat as well, just because it's able to Pursuit Trap both of my probably my two best offensive options against this team, those being Azelf and Victini, and it can eat up a V-Create easily from Victini. It can eat up any hit from Azelf as well and just Pursuit Trap me and knock me out. So that's kind of a threat as well that I have to plan around very carefully. Otherwise, I mean Garchomp. Garchomp's also a pretty big threat to my team. Really, his core in general is very strong against my team, which is going to make prep a little bit difficult, but of course I'm always up to the challenge, and I'm excited to see what I can put together for his roster. But in terms of the biggest threats on my team to his, Cloyster is a big boy threat. It is a big threat to his team, especially if I'm running something along the lines of Natural Gift Ground or Fire, or Ghost or Dark, something to hit the Jirachi switch in, as Jirachi really is his only answer to Cloyster. And I guess Snorlax to an extent is an answer as well, but yeah, those are really his only two responses to Cloyster. So Cloyster's definitely good in this match, but I actually decided not to build around Cloyster, and I will explain that in a little more detail here soon. Another big threat to his team is Victini. Of course, outside of the Snorlax, Victini hits everything very, very hard. The only downside is that I have to have some sort of something prepped for Scarfrachi, and that means that either Victini or Salamence is going to be delegated to a Rocky Helmet defensive role to eat up the Iron Heads and chip them away with Rocky Helmet damage. So that does kind of take away a little bit from Victini's offensive capabilities against him, but regardless, Victini is very good against him, both offensively and defensively. And then finally, the Empoleon is a very good mon against him, particularly Subpataya Agility, as he really doesn't have much to stop it. He has Snorlax that can try to stop it, but if I bring enough stuff for Snorlax, then that's not going to really be able to stick around long enough to stop Empoleon in its tracks. He could run something along the lines of a Spadef Jirachi, that would do pretty well, or Calm Mind Jirachi also would do pretty well against the Empoleon. And of course he has the Blastoise, which can take anything from this. Even a +1 Grass Knot from this is not going to be able to OHKO defensive Blastoise with 0 special defense. So he's got some responses to it, but I think it's probably one of my better win conditions in this game. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the team builder. And as you can see, I did build the team around the Empoleon. The Empoleon here, just Sub, Bataya, Agility with Ice Beam and Surf. Overall has the best coverage against this team in my opinion. I really, really wanted to run Grass Knot, but I figured that I wasn't going to be able to OHKO Blastoise anyways, and Torrent boosted Surf does a ton on its own. I really would like that super effective coverage for Hydreigon and Pidgeot and Togekiss if he brings those, so I felt that Surf Ice Beam was the best coverage. EVs here allow me to outspeed a Adamant or Modest Scarf Jirachi after an Agility. Pretty straightforward. I probably could. I really don't think he's going to bring Adamant or Modest Scarf Jirachi. But just in case he does, I figured it was best to go ahead and do that. You know, it might actually be Adamant Scarf Chomp here. I don't really remember, honestly, but it's one of those, roughly in that speed tier, just outspeeding the Scarf variants at +2. This is the primary win con this game, and we'll see if I can get that set up. Next, we have the Sylveon on a Choice Scarf this week, because I really want to be able to offensively check the Garchomp well, and I don't have too many options to do so, actually, as Lucario being really my best setup sweeper on my team is outsped by Garchomp, and really doesn't do that much damage with his priority options against it. So I need something that can do some damage to it offensively, and I think that Scarf Sylveon is the man for the job, or potentially woman for the job. I don't know what it actually is in the game, but yeah, so Sylveon's pretty good against this team, but the only downside, or a downside to this, is that he can pretty freely switch in the likes of Jirachi and really even Mega Pidgeot to this. Obviously, he doesn't want to switch Mega Pidgeot directly into a Hyper Voice, but Mega Pidgeot prevents me from spamming Scarf Shadow Ball, which is a thing, and Mega Pidgeot, if timid, also can outspeed this pretty easily, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but otherwise it's very, very good in the matchup and should help me wear him down to the point where things like my Lucario that I'll show later on and my Empoleon can hopefully win the game. So that's that. Next up is the Victini. This set is my Rocky Helmet. So it's going to be essentially stopping Scarf Rachi in his tracks if he decides to bring something like that. That's just not something I really want to deal with at all, so I need to have some sort of way of slowing that down. This also is running Taunt and Will-O-Wisp specifically for the purpose of countering a Pursuit Snorlax, as I really think Pursuit Snorlax is coming. I saw it in all my practice battles. It just makes a lot of sense against my team, and this will most definitely shut that down at the cost of just a little bit of my health from a burned pursuit, a couple burned pursuits. So yeah, that's about all there's to say about that. It's a pretty bulky set, so this really can take a lot of hits from things like Mega Pidgeot, from Jirachi, like I said before, even Togekiss. I could take any 2 hits probably from Togekiss, if not more. This also is a counter to Breloom should Mega Venusaur be taken out by something earlier in the game, as I outspeed any variant, any non-choice scarfed variants of Breloom, and obviously I can just destroy that with a Psychic or Blue Flare. And let's see, this also can be a decent switch into Rotom Heat. Granted, Rotom Heat is probably a switch into Victini, so I can at least chip away at Rotom Heat with this, making my sweeping potential with Lucario a little bit better, maybe even give me some sweeping potential with my Sylveon, as with all the resistance this weekend, obviously Scarf Sylveon could put in a lot of work in the matchup, so in general the idea is just to chip him down to the point where those offensive mons can do their job with this week. So kind of like I mentioned before, Cloyster is something that is really good against him, and basically the goal with this team is to take advantage of him over preparing for Cloyster. Now that might be somewhat of a risky attempt, but with Toge being such he's a veteran in the format, he knows what he's doing, he's a good player, very good at preparation as well. I need to get pretty creative with how I'm doing my builds, and if I just bring Cloyster, you know he's going to be ready for it. He's going to bring the perfect sets to counter Cloyster, and I want to take advantage of that over-preparation on Cloyster by packing different threats to his team that he might not have really considered. That's why I wanted to build around these Sub-Bataya agility Empoleon, because I think if he overpreps for Cloyster, then he's going to be left more vulnerable to the specially offensive Empoleon set. So that's kind of the general thought there. But moving on to the next Pokemon on my team, that is going to be Mega Venusaur. Now, I know Mega Venusaur doesn't really have the best defensive matchup this week, but I'm not using it for its defensive prowess. I'm using it for its bulky offensive prowess, namely that, one, Leech Seed is very good against a team that is kind of reliant on flinches and confusion, because regardless of if I'm getting flinched, I'm still gaining health back from the Leech Seed that is on my opponent's Pokemon. So that's the idea behind Leech Seed and Stem Synthesis. The coverage here, Sludge Bomb especially, hits almost its entire roster, and the fact that I have this much speed, this is a very fast Mega Venusaur, as you can see, this actually allows me to outspeed a max speed Breloom, which is pretty cool. It makes it such that I don't have to be concerned about the natural gift Flying, natural gift Psychic Breloom sets, which I honestly would not be surprised to see Toge bring, just knowing his style of preparation. But this also should give me the opportunity to outpace a Togekiss, as I do not expect a fully offensive Togekiss. I know that Togevoir likes to speed creep Pokemon with his preparation, so I think that Togekiss will be slower than a max speed Breloom would be, so this should also outpace that Togekiss, which 1 prevents me from getting flinched by Air Slash, but 2 allows me to get off a very powerful Sludge Bomb against the Togekiss, so that's something that's pretty nice as well. And then Hidden Power Ice is just here to give me an additional check to the Garchomp, because Garchomp's an enormous threat to my team. Quite honestly, I think Garchomp is the biggest threat to my team, particularly a Scarfed Garchomp, but just in general, SD Garchomp is also a huge threat. Maybe not sub as much because I have Scarf Sylveon, but maybe like a Salic Berry Garchomp, if he somehow is able to proc that berry without substituting, that also would be pretty good against my team, as well as resist Berry Garchomps in general. So just having Hidden Power Ice on this is pretty nice, especially if Garchomp is his Rocker, as it's pretty likely that he was switching Garchomp on Mega Venusaur to try to get up his Stealth Rocks, because otherwise it really wouldn't be that threatened by Mega Venusaur. So finally we have the knockoff, which is just there to knock off the resist berries. I know he loves his berries, and if I can knock all those off with Mega Venusaur, that would be fantastic, or at least a couple of them to make the rest of my team's job a little bit easier. Like I said, the EVs here allow me to outpace max speed Breloom and hopefully Togekiss as well. Just throwing in a ton into defense so I can best take hits from the likes of the Garchomp and from Snorlax and from Breloom. And yeah, so that's about it. The rest just an HP to, take those hits even a little bit better. So next up is the Azelf. This is going to be my dedicated lead this week with a Custat Berry and enough special defense investment to always survive Hurricane for Mega Pidgeot. Do I expect him to lead Mega Pidgeot? Honestly, no, but it's possible. And I want to make sure that this Pokemon can take advantage of absolutely any lead he can start with in this battle. And I believe that the moveset and EV spread that I have here is able to accomplish that goal, and that I'm running Stealth Rock, Safeguard, Explosion, and Ice Punch. Safeguard is definitely the gimmick of the week here, but it's there to help slow down his Thunder Wave spam, as I don't know how much of a douche he's going to be when it comes to his preparation, but I hate Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave hates me. We're not going to deal with it. We're going to run Safeguard this week on himself and try to at least slow down the process of getting my entire team paralyzed. So that's the thing. Stealth Rocks hopefully will go up turn 1. I really see no reason not to. If he leads Pidgeot, I'll probably go for Ice Punch turn 1 because I know it can survive the first Hurricane no matter what, and then I can Custat Berry another Ice Punch due to my investment and be able to take out Mega Pidgeot in that way. So I'll definitely click Ice Punch first if he leads Pidgeot. Otherwise, I'm clicking Rocks or Safeguard. If he leads Jirachi, I'm clicking Safeguard first in case he's Thunder Wave 100%. Same applies to Togekiss, and then Explosion just to do as much damage as possible to something, whatever the case may be. Ice Punch, of course, for the Garchomp and the Togekiss. So, next up and finally is the Lucario. This is on an air balloon. This is my primary, probably my best check to Scarf Garchomp, and that's pretty bad. I really don't have much on my team for Scarf Garchomp. I played with the idea of a defensive Cloyster. That's okay in the matchup, I guess, not amazing by any means. But in all honesty, I really just don't have much for Scarf Garchomp. I also could have done like a defensive Piloswine. That's an option. It's definitely an option. But Piloswine does not appreciate most of his team, unfortunately. Although his general weakness to ice actually makes it somewhat viable. Maybe it's something worth considering. I didn't opt for it this week. Instead, I brought this Lucario as my primary check to Scarf Garchomp on an air balloon, as if he's locked into Earthquake, that's a free +2, and he really doesn't have much to switch into this, especially at +2, considering Extreme Speed does a ton, especially with Rocks up to his entire roster. I believe with Rocks that Mega Pidgeot has a chance of being O-code. By this, I don't think it can. Maybe not quite a chance. I need a little bit of prior damage on it first, which shouldn't be too hard. But overall, he really just doesn't have switch-ins to this at +2, especially considering this coverage that I'm bringing this week. So yeah, overall, this is looking pretty strong too. So the prep this week it's pretty different against a team like his. I really had to prepare with the thought of being hacked to the ground in mind. And that's why I run things like Safeguard, things like Leech Seed, things like Substitute on Empoleon, and things like Rocky Helmet on Victini. Like, I have all these things in place to help me against all these Haxy strategies, but that's still no guarantee that I'll be able to avoid being hacked down this week. So that's something that I'm going to have to be I'm going to have to play at the top of my game to try to stay out of those situations that can cause me to get hacked, but even then it's no guarantee because Scarf Rachi plus Scarf Togekiss is going to get off those flinching moves very quickly, and there's not much I can really do about that outside of like outspeeding it and out-prioritizing it. So this matchup's hard. It's a very hard matchup. I think in terms of Pokemon to Pokemon, like how my team matches up against his team, just thinking about types, it's not bad for me, but when it comes to his play style with this team being Haxy, that's bad for me. So I'm nervous on that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous on that, but I think I am capable of winning this game, and that's what I'm going to try to do. But let's go ahead and see if I can pull that off. Let's go ahead and hop on over to the battle. Okay, so taking a look at team preview, he brought probably the worst case scenario team for me, in that he brought the entire Hax core, being Togekiss, Jirachi, and Mega Pidgeot. Then he has Garchomp, the threat of all threats, and then he has the Blastoise and Rotom Heat. I'm very surprised to not see the Snorlax in this build. I felt Snorlax had a fantastic matchup against my team. The only thing really being able to take advantage of it, at least at face value, is Lucario, and even so, if he ran a Chompel Berry, he would easily be able to eat up a close combat and take me out with a Fire Punch or Earthquake. So I'm a little surprised to not see Snorlax in this build, probably in the Togekiss slot, in all honesty, but he brought it, or he didn't bring it, and he brought the Hax core instead. Now I'm going to have to deal with that, which is pretty frightening, to say the least. But in terms of the lead matchup, I am definitely going to be leading Azelf. Like I said before, it has a good matchup against essentially everything, and I am somewhat expecting him to lead with Jirachi or Mega Pidgeot, potentially even Garchomp to try to set up his Stealth Rocks. So with that said, I guess we'll go ahead and hop on into the battle and see what happens. So I do lead off with my Azelf here, as he actually will opt to lead off with his Rotom Heat, which is a little bit unfortunate, because I really don't have the best options for Rotom Heat outside of exploding on it. So it's basically a question of, do I want to sacrifice my Azelf here to get damage on Rotom Heat? And even so, will he switch into Jirachi expecting the explosion, or at least scouting for it? Definitely scouting for the explosion is a good play that I think he should do, especially after he reveals the Shadow Ball here and does a bunch of damage to me, but he decides to stay in and essentially just take a ton of damage from this. And that's a play I actually strongly disagree with on his end, because he easily could have gone Jirachi to scout. If I were a Scarf Victini in the back, losing this is terrible for him, especially considering the coverage of V-Create and Bolt Strike. So I really don't disagree with that play on turn 2, but now we're going to have to deal with it. And he's pretty fortunate that I'm a defensive Victini instead of an offensive one. So I'm going to go into my Lucario, knowing that because the calc from the Shadow Ball indicated he was defensive or specially defensive, I can just go ahead and outspeed this with Lucario and go straight for the close combat. And we are now at a 5-5 score, although I do have my rocks up, so I would say I am at a slight advantage at this point, despite the fact that I've lost my Safeguard user without being able to show off that heat, but maybe that'll be safe for another time. But he is going to go into his Garchomp, which is really strange, considering I already revealed I was Air Balloon. So with that said, he's probably going to go for like a Fire Blast, or go for you know, like a Dragon move or something to hit my Lucario and break the Air Balloon, but he goes for Earthquake. So what this means is that he either is a Lord and is probably the best player I've ever seen in my life, or he didn't see that my Lucario was on an Air Balloon. And the thing is, I really needed Sylveon at high health to be able to check a lot of his mons, Mega Pidgeot especially. And as you can see here, I'm going to take a chunk from this Earthquake. So that happens. And let me tell you why that's really important. You see the Roselli Berry here. I go for the Scarf Hyper Voice, and if he were not Roselli Berry, I definitely would have taken it out at this range, and then really this whole misplay on his end wouldn't have been an issue. But he has the Roselli Berry, and now I lose my Sylveon. So we're going to pause here and talk a little bit. So when I lose my Sylveon this early in the match, I lose essentially my best way to get damage on non-Scarfed Jirachi. And at this point, with losing Sylveon, I'm not able to spam Shadow Ball against the Jirachi and get that crucial damage I need against it in order to be able to take it out, a non-Scarf Jirachi out with my Lucario later in the game, or I guess with other means like Victini or something. And yeah, so I lost Sylveon without being able to get off that crucial damage on some of his walls. Even Mega Pidgeot, I really would like to have had damage on Mega Pidgeot with this, and if he's a modest Mega Pidgeot, I think I can actually outspeed that thing with Scarf Sylveon, so that's something that also could come into play here. But this play, when he doesn't see the Air Balloon, has such huge significance, and I will talk about this more later on. So we're going to go ahead and continue, as my Sylveon does unfortunately go down after he revealed the Roselli Berry and ate up my Hyper Voice. And now I'm essentially forced to go into my Lucario, and I'm forced to click Ice Punch because this thing is such a huge threat at this point, and he apparently didn't even see my Air Balloon. Maybe I should have gone for Swords Dance here because he went for Earthquake again. So, I don't even know. I don't know. Like, how am I supposed to predict that? That's the thing. How am I supposed to predict that someone doesn't see my Air Balloon? Because like this really screwed me over this game, unfortunately. But well, I guess what can you do? So we're going to, let's see. He switches into his Mega Pidgeot as he lets his Garchomp go down to the Ice Punch, and now I pretty much am forced, I think, to switch into my Empoleon. I would have liked to switch into my Sylveon on that turn if I still had all that health back. But unfortunately for me, he actually makes a very nice play here and goes for some hidden power that Empoleon is weak to. I'm going to assume it's hidden power ground. I think hidden power ground makes the most sense against me, but even so, hidden power ground against, say, an Air Balloon Lucario is again a misplay. So I don't really know on that. Maybe it's hidden power fighting. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt and say it's hidden power fighting, but if it's hidden power ground, Toge, I'm calling you out. You made a very bad play again. But he is going to switch out his Mega Pidgeot into his Blastoise, which is a good play, as I'm just going to go straight for the agility, as I really need to take this opportunity to try to get back on the right foot this game. I don't really like sending out Empoleon this early, but whenever I lose Sylveon like I did so early in the match, I really don't have any other options. I probably could have gone Mega Venusaur here and just started going for Sludge Bombs, but that risks him having the Mirror Coat. It also gives him a free Rapid Spin. It also gives him essentially a free switch into Mega Pidgeot sooner than I would like. However, in hindsight, it might have made more sense to go into the Sylveon here. Regardless, or not the Sylveon, rather the Mega Venusaur here. Regardless, I am now in Torrent range, I believe, so I'm just going to go straight for the Surf, as he actually reveals the red card. So that was pretty interesting. And coupling that, he actually goes for Roar on this turn as well. So that's interesting too. I don't really agree with the Roar play here either. He probably could have easily gone for a Scald or Aura-Sphere, whatever his offensive option was, considering I was no doubt going to attack that turn. I can't sub again when I'm already behind a sub, so he definitely should have attacked that turn in my opinion, but I'm just going to go straight for the Surf, and we are going to do a ton of damage again to the Blastoise, and he's just going to roar me out again, which is a good play in case I went for sub and wanted my Bataya boost. Now, I am going to be roared into my Mega Venusaur, which I guess that's fine. We end up being here anyways, but I'm just going to go ahead and Mega Evolve and go for the Sludge Bomb, I believe. I considered going for something like Leech Seed here and switching into something like the Lucario again, maybe to try to get myself in a better position against the no doubt incoming Mega Pidgeot, but I really didn't see it being worth it. I guess I could have also gone into Victini. I didn't want to take a Scald though, and I felt Scald was his best play in that situation, maybe going for the burn on the Mega Venusaur just in case I was a specially defensive variant, because if I was specially defensive, I actually could have eaten up this Hurricane from the Pidgeot, and unfortunately that's not the case, and I get blown back here, but that's fine because Mega Venusaur has, I believe, done his job well enough this game considering what he actually brought. Now here I'm forced to go into Victini. It's my only thing that can take a hit from Mega Pidgeot at this point, and he just goes straight for the Hurricane, revealing that he probably is timid, which is fine. That's going to do a good amount of damage to me here. But he gets the Confusion Hex, which is a little bit scary, but fortunately for me, the Confusion Hex never becomes an issue in this game, so that's pretty nice. But I'm just going to go straight for the Blue Flare and do a pretty good chunk to this big Mega Pidgeot, which is nice. He's now in E-Speed range, and knowing that he got the Confusion Hex, Roost is easily his best play here because he shouldn't go down to another Blue Flare. I'm going to click it again and just pray I don't get fully confused or get hit in confusion, and I'm able to get off the Blue Flare again and get the Mega Pidgeot even a little bit weaker, which is pretty nice. Now here I strongly considered trying to switch into Empoleon, as Empoleon might not be of use this game anymore, and maybe I could keep the Victini a little bit healthier, but I didn't really think the risk outweighed the reward in that situation. In hindsight, yes, it was my best play, but I don't think I could have made that play just in case he was something like a Jirachi that didn't have coverage for the Empoleon. I also felt that I kind of wanted to keep the Empoleon with as much health as possible to take a hit from a non-Aura Sphere Togekiss, so I had some thoughts going on with that play, but that definitely could have been something that could have been changed in this game. He's just going to revenge me with the Jirachi, revealing that he at least outspeeds this, which is pretty scary because that means he's got a little bit of speed investment at least. I'm going to go into Lucario and essentially pray that he does not outspeed Lucario, because if I get up a +2 here with a Swords Dance, I can close combat this away, and then close combat this away, and then I should outspeed Togekiss as long as he's not Scarfed, and then I could clean up the game with close combat plus Ice Punch. Close combat on Jirachi, Ice Punch on Togekiss, theoretically, and maybe finish him off with Empoleon, but unfortunately, he does outspeed me and hit me with that Psychic, and this is about all she wrote for the Toronto Staraptors in MPL Week 3. As the Jirachi will be able to finish off the Lucario, and with a Hidden Power Ground or Fighting, I'm assuming Ground, the Empoleon as well. So, unfortunately, we do lose in Week 3 of the National Pokeball League to Togevoir, and in our real Season 4 championship. And there's something about these quote-unquote championship matches in me, and that I lose in the derpiest ways. Derpy is one way to put it. The most ridiculous ways is the other way I want to put it. And that I honestly think if he noticed I had an Air Balloon on my Lucario and didn't click Earthquake with his Garchomp, then I would have been in a very good position to win, if not just go ahead and win, definitely. As losing Sylveon as early as I did most definitely played a role in this match, as I really needed to weaken the Jirachi very badly to the point where I could knock it out with my Lucario, or maybe knock it off with my Mega Venusaur. He revealed to have Psychic. There's no way he could O-code me or flinch me down with Psychic, so I definitely could have knocked off with the Mega Venusaur, or gotten a Leech Seed on it at least. So there's definitely plays I could have made that would have put me in a much better position if he did not neglect to see the Air Balloon on Lucario. So that's a game. That's a game I definitely won't forget. I'm glad this was in the regular season technically and not actually in the playoffs, because if this was how I lost in the playoffs, I would be salty for months, as this is honestly on par with what happened against Trev in the actual finals last season. So yeah, good game, Toj. You played well outside of probably the Rotom play at the beginning and the whole fiasco with Garchomp. But, I mean, you had good prep, very good prep, and you made some nice predictions as well with the Mega Pidgeots. And, yeah. I don't know really what else to say on this. This game was something special, to say the least. But next week we have our first divisional game against Palm, or I guess he goes by Aberforth now, my fellow TokenMinorities member, and the Brisbane Breloons. He's obviously very skilled as well. And he just got his first win this week in this season against another pretty good team in Detroit. So it's going to be a dogfight, to say the least. But we're going to get back on the winning track here next week in the National Pokeball League, and we will try to advance to a 3-1 record next week. But we do pick up our first loss this week, and it's time to go ahead and rebound from that. But I think I've rambled on enough at this point. Let the salt flow. How obvious is it that I'm salty right now? Just tell me in the comments below. I'm sure it's quite obvious. But anyway, we will see you all next week. Peace.